Over the past 2 weeks, we have discussed Riddle's life from birth through his time at Hogwarts, when he regained his followers and also his body back. And we're going to pick up the story where he is trying to obtain the prophecy. So firstly, Voldemort decided to get Lucius to put Sturgis, who worked in the Ministry of Magic, under the Imperious Curse and send him to the Department of Mysteries. Unfortunately, however, Sturgis wasn't able to actually get into the department and therefore failed to get the prophecy. His next attempt was to use the Imperious Curse on someone called Bode. Broderick Bode was ordered to obtain the prophecy, but he was actually seriously injured in the process and was put into a permanent ward at St. Mungo's Hospital. So from this, Voldemort realised that the only people who could obtain the prophecy were those who it was actually about. He also realised that he couldn't just walk into the ministry to get this prophecy, so he used that mental link that he had with Harry to get him to go instead. Now we all know what happened there, and after a year of complete secrecy, Voldemort's cover was blown. The remaining Death Eaters were also caught by the Ministry of Magic and the Auras, and Lucius was actually sent to Azkaban. Sometime after this all happened, Voldemort engaged in a intimate relationship with Bellatrix, and they actually had a child together called Delphine. But she would actually be raised by the Rowell family, who were a family that was sworn to Voldemort. As well, during this time, Voldemort found out that Lucius had been rather careless with his school diary and that it had been destroyed. And of course, he was absolutely furious about this. One of his Horcruxes was gone. So Voldemort no longer needed to keep his actions silent, and obviously the Second Wizarding War began. Now during this time as well, Voldemort actually recruited the Dementors of Azkaban, because he could actually offer them more scope for their powers, and as a result of this, so many attacks happened from the Dementors. Mass Muggle killings were happening constantly. There was claims that a hurricane had killed many people, but this was actually giants, who again Voldemort had drawn into allegiance with him. Dementor attacks were daily. It caused awful weather, and the Muggles were thrown into just pits of despair and depression. Voldemort did also try to blackmail Cornelius Fudge, who was able to resist. However, when Fudge did stand his ground, Voldemort decided to blow up a bridge and sent 12 cars into the water below. In 1996, Voldemort thought, I need to have a spy within the walls of Hogwarts, and therefore he recruited Draco Malfoy. Realising that Voldemort still had a bit of an issue at Hogwarts in the form of Dumbledore, he set Draco the task of killing his former teacher. And to Voldemort, it was 2 birds with 1 stone. Remove an enemy that he knew he couldn't win against, but also punish Lucius for the actions that he'd taken. Now, if Draco had failed, there would have been some awful consequences waiting for him. However, as it happened, we know that Draco was able to use a pair of vanishing cabinets to sneak people into Hogwarts from Borgin and Burkes. Now, we also know that Voldemort captured Ollivander, and Ollivander shared with Voldemort about his and Harry's wand having the same core and how difficult it would be for them to actually fight against each other. Now this was great news for Voldemort, because he was really concerned at this point that it was actually Harry's superior skill that had caused the actions to happen that had, that he couldn't kill Harry. However, he realised that no, it's just my wand. Just my wand being annoying. Nothing to do with my skill. Ollivander told Voldemort that he merely needs a different wand. This will solve the issue you're having, just use a different wand. So as another blow to the Malfoy family, as another punishment and as a way to show them up, I guess, Voldemort took Lucius's wand from him. And at this point, he was thinking, I'm nearly ready to take the ministry now. In 1997, Harry left Privet Drive for the last time, and we also know that Voldemort was aware of these movements and decided to try and attack him in mid-air. Not only was this when Voldemort murdered Moody, but also when he went to attack Harry, Harry's wand actually acted in its own way and shot gold fire at him, actually destroying Malfoy's wand in the process. Now when Voldemort went back to Malfoy Manor, as was the headquarters, with Pettigrew, he accused Ollivander of actually misleading him and lying to him, and decided to torture him with the Cruciatus curse as punishment. Ollivander told him truthfully that actually, I didn't know this was going to happen. This has never happened before, that a wand just goes and does its own thing. However, Voldemort decided that Ollivander must tell him everything he knew about the legend of the Elder Wand. Just after this, the Ministry of Magic was then compromised, and it fell to the power of Voldemort. There was a version released that Rufus Scrimgeour was retired, but actually he'd been tortured and murdered by Voldemort. Voldemort then placed a taboo on Harry's name, which meant that any time someone said the name Harry Potter, the Death Eaters could locate anyone who'd said it and potentially find Harry in the process. So Voldemort was pretty happy that his servants were taking care of things in Britain, so he decided to leave and try and find Grigorovich the Wand Maker and in turn the Elder Wand. In true Voldemort fashion, he murdered anyone that got in his way, and eventually he was able to find Grigorovich, who simply said the wand was stolen. Voldemort then performed legilimency on Grigorovich to understand exactly the truth behind what had happened and saw a young boy stealing the wand. Upon interrogation, Voldemort wasn't able to get the name of the young boy who'd taken it because Grigorovich didn't know, and therefore Voldemort just killed Grigorovich. In 1998, Voldemort then travelled to Austria and he broke into the Nuremberg prison where Grindelwald was being held. So his intention was to beat, berate, torture Grindelwald into telling him where the location of the Elder Wand was. But what baffled Voldemort is that Grindelwald wasn't scared of him, wasn't afraid of him, was completely unbothered by him being there. Grindelwald actually even disclosed that he welcomed death. And this just enraged Voldemort, so he just kind of gave him what he wanted and again killed him. At that moment, Bellatrix summoned Voldemort because Harry had accidentally broken the taboo himself, him and his friends, and he'd been captured and taken back to Malfoy Manor. He departed Austria with the intention to end Harry's life, but unfortunately Harry had managed to escape with the assistance of Dobby just before Voldemort had got back, and obviously he was absolutely furious at this point. He was so close yet again and had missed. Voldemort actually caused physical harm to Bellatrix and the Malfoys because of this and forbade them from leaving Malfoy Manor. After this, Voldemort then realised that Dumbledore must have won the wand from Grindelwald. He went to Hogwarts and with the assistance of Snape, he broke into Dumbledore's grave and stole the wand. So in the May of 1998, Voldemort was informed that Harry and his friends had broken into Bellatrix's vault at Gringotts and had robbed it. Now this threw Voldemort into a panic, especially when he was told that a small cup had been stolen. Now, in true Voldemort style, he flew into a rage and just murdered anyone around him because he now realised that Harry was hunting Horcruxes. He couldn't figure out how Harry had found out about the Horcruxes because he hadn't actually told anyone. Now we know obviously that Dumbledore found out about these and told Harry, and that's how Harry started to collect and destroy the Horcruxes. So Voldemort went through all the locations in his mind where he'd left his Horcruxes, unaware that Harry was actually connected to his mind at that time. He unwittingly then revealed the location of the last Horcrux, as we know, was at Hogwarts. So of course that's where Harry, Ron and Hermione went to. Following the revelations and the realisations of what was going on, Voldemort went to the Gaunt Shack and to the cave, only to discover that both the Horcruxes that had been stored there were no longer there, and most likely they'd been destroyed. Now at the start of the Battle of Hogwarts, Voldemort actually wasn't there because he didn't feel a need to be there at that time. He was actually staying not that far away though in the Shrieking Shack. Whilst he was in the shack, he was trying to identify why the Elder Wand wasn't really working for him, and he came to the conclusion it was because the wand needed to accept him as a master, and therefore he said to Nagini, "Go and kill Snape for me." He believed that this would solve the problem because he would kill the current master and then he would become the master. But we know that's not how A, wand law works, really. And 2, we also know that the person who disarmed Dumbledore is the one who was the True Master, and obviously that was Draco. So let's fast forward a little bit to where Harry meets Voldemort and the Death Eaters in the forest. Now what Voldemort didn't realise was 3 years prior, when he'd used Harry's blood to regain his body, the blood passed Harry's protection from his mother, from Harry to Voldemort, and actually anchored him to the living world at that point through Voldemort. So when Voldemort cast the curse, both he and Harry fell unconscious. Voldemort's maimed soul appeared in King's Cross Station, and Harry was able to speak to Dumbledore in where you can only call the place Limbo, I'm guessing. Now, unsure of what happened, we know that Voldemort asked Narcissa to check if Harry was still alive. We know that she did proclaim Harry as dead, and this made Voldemort very happy, and he declared that no man alive could harm him. He then also, furthermore, performed the Cruciatus curse on Harry's body and forced Hagrid to carry him back up to the castle. Now, Voldemort didn't realise either that Narcissa had lied to him for the purpose of getting entry to the castle so she could find Draco and check that he was okay. So Voldemort and his army went up to Hogwarts Castle and was declaring that Harry had been killed while trying to escape. He was a coward, so I killed him. Instead of surrendering, however, Neville charged at Voldemort after refusing to join him, and he therefore placed a full body bind curse on him, also put the Sorting Hat on his head and set fire to the Sorting Hat as to make an example of him, claiming that Slytherin would be the only Hogwarts house from now on. However, at that minute, reinforcements actually arrived and Neville was able to throw off the curse. He then pulled the Gryffindor sword from the Sorting Hat and decapitated Nagini. Now we know that obviously she's the last remaining Horcrux and now she's been destroyed, and obviously Voldemort was enraged at this and he actually tried to kill Neville. But Harry was actually beneath his invisibility cloak at this point and he interfered and cast a shield charm between them. Okay, so we kind of know what happens from there on. I've mentioned in other videos that the actual final showdown happened in the Great Hall. So Molly killed Bellatrix. Voldemort was very angry about this and tried to kill Molly, but again Harry cast a shield charm between them, so Voldemort wasn't able to do anything. So we're at the point where they're facing each other in the Great Hall. And Harry said to Voldemort that by willingly sacrificing himself for all his friends and his family, he'd pass on the same protective charm to everyone he loved, like his mother had done to him. Harry tried to explain to Voldemort that he had magic that Voldemort would never have, and a weapon more powerful than his. Now, in addition to warning Voldemort of the fate that lay in store for him if he was unwilling to feel remorse by his actions. Now, Harry would goad Voldemort by using his birth name of Tom. And Harry told Voldemort that Snape's loyalty was actually with Dumbledore the entire time and not with him. He told him that Dumbledore's death was planned and that the true master of the Elder Wand was actually Draco, not Snape. Now originally he was shocked, but Voldemort wasn't actually worried because, as we know, Harry didn't have his original wand anymore. So he told Harry he was going to kill him and then he was going to dispose of Draco to get the full ownership of the Elder Wand. But then Harry decided to throw another curveball, another revelation, and said, well, actually I disarmed Draco, so the Elder Wand actually belongs to me. Voldemort didn't want to believe this and decided just to throw a killing curse, at which point Harry played the only spell that it seems like he actually knew if you watch the films, and he threw Expelliarmus back. Now, the Elder Wand refused to kill its true master. It rebounded and ended up killing Voldemort instead. After his death, Voldemort's body was actually moved away from the main hall, but no one actually knows what happened to it. I think it's safe to say it was disposed of in some way, maybe it was just thrown in the lake. However, his mutilated soul was therefore trapped in limbo forever. The soul is meant to stay whole and intact for a proper afterlife, but because of what he'd done with the Horcruxes and splitting his soul, he was neither able to remain on Earth as a ghost or move on fully to the afterlife. After his death had been confirmed, the Wizarding World was able to say his name without any fear. And for a man who feared death, his fate was much, much worse. But that's it, guys. That is the story of Voldemort from start to finish and all his heinous and awful actions. Do make sure you check out part 1 and part 2 to find out how this man was created and how his life was before he became Lord Voldemort. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got lots of really fun stuff coming out this year, and soon we're going to be starting on the Christmas content, so we don't want you to miss out on that. But as always guys, until next time, you take care.